Picture putting your life into your family home, scrubbing toilets all day and night to make ends meet, only to be informed at supper, "You can have the guest room or get out." That's the stomach-churning moment Dorothy Shaw experienced, booted out by the people she'd been holding up herself. But what if her suspicions about her brother's flashy spouse turn into a revelation that turns everything around? Prepare to be taken on a journey of concealed secrets, greed in the family, and a revenge so biting that it will cut deep. This is the family eviction. It's about to implode in ways you cannot see coming. Buckle up, because Dorothy's revenge is only just starting. Dorothy Shaw, a 34-year-old environmental engineer in Omaha, Nebraska, was always the rock of her family, the fixer, the payer, the one who kept the house from falling apart. When her grandmother died 5 years ago, Dorothy returned to her parents' old Victorian house to assist. The bills mounted like snowdrifts, falling behind on mortgage payments, past due utilities, a leaking roof Dad brushed off because it'll hold. As an engineer for a respectable company, Dorothy volunteered to pay most of it. Her paycheck disappeared into new windows, $4,200, a water heater, $1,800, property taxes, $2,500 a year, and constant repairs. She put in 60-hour weeks, tearing from site visits and hard hats to late-night reports at her computer, her eyes seared from blueprints and spreadsheets. But it was never enough. Dad would grunt curtly when she handed over receipts, his praise as brief as a sigh, his attention always drawn to her brother Justin. Justin, age 32, had a knack for failing in a spectacular and upward direction. He'd started one failure after another, a gourmet tacos food truck that went belly up after 3 months due to poor permits, a crypto app that spewed promises of instant wealth and wiped out with the market, an online retailer selling eco-gadgets that sent fakes and crashed from refunds. Every time, he'd sneak back to Dad with a new proposition, his eyes shining, and Dad would swallow it whole, slapping his shoulder with, "That's my boy. Big dreams." Dorothy's efforts? A mere footnote. One evening, she eavesdropped on Mom talking to Dad in the kitchen, her voice husky over clinking plates. "She's just here to help, George. Justin's the one with vision." It burned like salt in a new cut. Dorothy wasn't family, she was a renter, invisible unless a bill was due. Then Justin met his wife, Kendra, and everything went into overdrive. He brought her to Sunday dinner one cool autumn evening. All smiles and hellos, Kendra blew in like a whirlwind, tall, polished, with a real estate agent's smile that flashed and heels that clicked like swagger. She drove up in a black SUV that shone in the streetlights, sporting a watch that yelled old money and earrings that reflected the chandelier light. Dad and Mom just couldn't stop talking about her. "She's got her act together," Dad thundered, carving the roast. Mom nodded, wide-eyed. "What a catch for you, Justin." Dorothy sat across the table, her fork caught in mid-bite. Real estate in Omaha was not a gold mine. Not for someone Kendra's age, straight out of a starter agency. But Kendra giggled too boisterously at Dad's bad jokes, flipping her highlighted hair as Justin grinned like he'd just won the lottery. Dorothy attempted small talk, questions about clients, properties, the standard. But Kendra dodged graciously, switching to a big deal coming up shortly, with wishy-washy references to equity flips and leverage plays that made Dad's eyes shine like Christmas. Justin waited breathlessly on her words, nodding like a hungry puppy. Dorothy spoke up only once, saying how she'd only just paid the most recent utility surge, $450, but Dad interrupted her. "Let's hear about Kendra's next project." It was as if she didn't exist unless there was a crisis. There were other warning signs that accumulated. Kendra showed up unexpectedly with bags full of high-end stores Dorothy couldn't even touch on over time. She once whipped out a designer phone, which she said was a business write-off. Justin didn't bat an eye. He merely boasted of her hustle. Dad patted him on the back. "You snagged a winner, son." Dorothy held her tongue, but the numbers just didn't compute. Her paycheck barely made it to the house. How was Kendra throwing around money like it poured from the skies? She told Mom one quiet afternoon, folding laundry in the sunroom. "Doesn't Kendra's lifestyle look off for a realtor here?" Mom shrugged, her knitting needles clicking. She's successful, Dorothy. Don't be so cynical. It wasn't just the money. Kendra navigated discussions like a seasoned salesman, always selling a vision, flipping houses, hanging with investors. She'd look at Dorothy over dinner, a smirk dancing as if she knew the game and Dorothy was losing. The worst was the way they treated Dorothy in between those instances. Justin took her car without permission. Business meeting, sis. Bringing it back with an empty gas tank. Dad issued curt commands. Contribute more around the house, oblivious to the fact that Dorothy's checks held the roof in place. Mom remained mute, grunting over dishes or patterns, keeping her eyes averted from Dorothy. Dorothy began a mental count. More than $250,000 invested in that house since return. Hundreds of thousands of sweat and silence. She wasn't assisting, she was supporting them. But to them, she was the safety net, whereas Justin and Kendra were golden stars. Nights ran together with ceiling staring in her childhood room. Teen posters faded, asking herself why her work didn't matter. She'd passed on promotions to remain near, spent weekends fixing pipes rather than dating or traveling. Kendra's shiny confidence irritated her. Too practiced, too perfect. Dorothy couldn't help but feel Kendra was playing a larger game, one that would pull them all down. That evening, Sunday, October 14th, 2025, Dorothy entered the dining room anticipating a peaceful meal. The table was set with Mom's antique china, the aroma of pot roast savory and comforting. She settled into her chair, mustering a smile as Dad sliced the meat, steam curling like a peace offering. Mom tinkered with napkins, fingers nervously fluttering. Then the front door bashed open. Justin burst in, dragging 2 suitcases, Kendra trailing with a designer tote over her shoulder, heels clicking like victory. "We're moving in," Justin announced, dropping the bags with a thud that echoed. Kendra flashed a tight smile, eyes scanning the room like an appraiser. Dorothy's stomach twisted. This wasn't a visit. Dad didn't blink. "Dorothy," he said, not looking up from his plate, voice flat as gravel. "You can have the guest room or move out." Her fork hovered in midair, roast unscathed. "What?" She was able to get out, throat constricted like wire. Justin grinned, relaxing back. "Come on, sis. You don't need all that room. We're beginning again here." Kendra smiled, her eyes shining like she'd won something. Anger flared in Dorothy's chest, years of bitterness spilling over. "Hold on," she said, harder than she'd meant. "I've been paying for this house. Electricity, repairs, the mortgage. I purchased the fridge, $1,200. The water heater, $1,800. Even the paint on these walls, $800. And now you want me on a fold-out couch." She appealed to Dad, begging for recognition, but he let out a deep sigh. "It's time you step back. Justin and Kendra need the room more. They've got plans." "Plans?" Dorothy wanted to shout. Justin's plans lasted a season at best, and she was the one keeping this family from sinking. Justin leaned forward, grin widening like a shark. "You're not exactly essential here, Dorothy. You're just here." Kendra stifled a laugh, manicured hand over her mouth. Dorothy clenched her fists under the table, nails digging crescents into her palms. "Not essential?" she shot back, voice cracking but fierce. "I've invested hundreds of thousands to keep this roof over your heads. Missed promotions to stay, worked weekends patching leaks. What have you done, Justin? Another failure?" Dad thumped his hand on the table, glasses clattering like thunder. "Enough," he growled. "This isn't about you. They're family. They're staying. End of discussion." Mom sat glowering, twisting her napkin into knots, as silent as stone. Dorothy waited for a word, a glance, anything. But Mom just sat there, eyes on her plate. Kendra leaned against Justin, whispering something that made him chuckle low. The room shrank, walls pressing in like a vice. Dorothy pushed her chair back, screech echoing. "I'm not doing this. If I'm not wanted, I'm gone." She stormed upstairs, heart pounding like a drum. She stuffed a duffel into her room. Clothes, laptop, some books jammed in. Down, she unplugged the flat-screen TV she'd purchased, $600 last year, cords trailing behind her. She pulled sofa cushions paid for to the door, fabric scrabbling wood. Justin trailed after her, laughing harsh. "Taking the couch, really?" Dorothy didn't even glance his way, carrying boxes to her car parked at the curb. Dad stood in the doorway, arms crossed like a sentinel. "You're making a scene," he said, voice low and final. She didn't answer, loaded the last box, slammed the trunk, engine roaring to life. The house shrank in her rear view, lights flickering like a bad memory. She wasn't just leaving a room. She was done carrying them all. A few days after that, Dorothy moved into a small apartment downtown. The city hummed a soothing buzz outside her window. Her colleague Gloria discovered the listing, a snug one-bedroom with room for her salvaged sofa and TV. Gloria visited that first evening, her laugh a gentle warmth as she unpacked boxes. "Get out of your head, Dorothy," she said, tossing a yoga flyer. "It's a reset." Dorothy wasn't convinced, but Gloria's enthusiasm drew her in. The following night, she struggled through poses at the studio, sweat and stretches loosening the knot in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she breathed more easily, rebuilding her life back, until the phone rang. Mom's call, strained voice. In the distance, Justin screamed, panicked. "She's lying! Mom, tell me she's lying!" Anarchy overflowed through the receiver as Dorothy began to rebuild, and what followed would flip their world on its head. Nevertheless, the discomfort regarding my brother's wife, Miriam, lingered around me like damp mist. Her gaudy lifestyle, designer purses draped over her shoulder, that gleaming black SUV parked in the driveway, gnawed at my stomach. I'd quit my parents' place in Omaha, Nebraska, 2 weeks before, hauling my TV and sofa to a new downtown apartment, but the questions refused to release. I required answers. In the wee hours of the night, I called Michael, an old real estate friend I'd known at a conference years previous. He answered on the second ring, his tone firm but questioning. "Dorothy, it's been ages. What's going on?" I got to the point, telling Michael about Miriam, her real estate business, her boasting of deals, and the money she flashed like a badge. Michael had nothing to say, then asked, "Miriam Cole?" His expression changed. "She's been on some radars. Her agency's being investigated for dirty flips, phony appraisals, skimming clients' money. Nothing's been proven, but she's not pristine." My heart dropped like a rock. I thanked him, hung up, and sat in the faint light of my new apartment, brain reeling. If Miriam was corrupt, my family was deeper than I'd suspected. I called Dad, praying he'd listen. "Dad, you have to listen," I said, revealing what Michael had discovered about Miriam's law firm. His response was a gruff grunt. "Don't go poking your nose into their affairs, Dorothy. They're getting along just fine without you mixing things up." I pushed further, referring to the investigation, but he flared, "Enough. Mind your own life." And the phone went dead. I glared at my phone, frustration boiling into a furious froth. Dad's blind allegiance to Justin and Miriam was nothing new. Ever since, he'd always taken Justin's side, no matter how much destruction. I next called Mom, praying for a glimmer of a crack in her customary silence. "Mom, just listen," I begged, laying out the red flags. Miriam's sudden wealth, the agency's reputation. She took a deep breath, voice gentle but strong. "Dorothy, drop it. They're happy, don't spoil it." I felt like screaming. How could they be so blind? But Mom never questioned Dad or Justin. I hung up, feeling more alone than ever, yet more determined to dig. I called old contacts. A former engineering client who'd worked in real estate law emailed back fast, confirming Michael's tip. Miriam's firm faced multiple fraud complaints, including fraudulent mortgages. A surveyor I'd collaborated with mentioned overhearing gossip at a title company about Miriam pushing dodgy deals. Each clue tightened the knot in my stomach. Suspicion hardened into certainty. She was hiding something massive. I kept quiet, creating a mental dossier. Records of property transactions indicated houses listed in Miriam's name selling for overpriced amounts. Buyers subsequently lodging complaints. No concrete evidence, but enough to continue the search. I texted Michael once more, requesting reports. "I'll keep my ear open," he assured. In the meantime, I committed to my new schedule. Work, yoga with Gloria, evening meals at hers. Omaha's urban bustle felt like a new beginning, but my family's dismissal lingered. Was Justin part of it, or simply a pawn? 2 weeks passed before I ran into Hazel, an acquaintance of my family, at a coffee shop. Her graying hair was tied into a tight bun as she nursed a cup of coffee in the corner. "Dorothy, it's been so long," she said, beckoning me over. We talked a few minutes, but when I said Justin's wife, her smile disappeared. "Miriam Cole?" she said, her voice low. "I used to know her. Worked for a shoddy company in Lincoln. Forged signatures, inflated prices, kept the difference. Miriam was right up to her neck in it, but managed to avoid the lawsuit. My heart pounded. I drove directly to my parents' home, clenched hands around the wheel. Justin stood in the driveway, unloading groceries, smirking as usual. "We need to talk," I told him, pulling out my phone to reveal Michael's email on the investigation. "She's not what you think, Justin. Her company's been scamming for years. Phony appraisals, pilfered funds. Hazel says she operated a scam in Lincoln." His face grew serious. He took the phone from me, read the email quickly, then handed it back to me. "You're jealous," he sneered. "Miriam's succeeding and you don't like it. Get out of here making things up." I gazed, dumbfounded. "It's not about me," I said. "She's risking our family." He laughed, cold and bitter. "Play detective somewhere else, Dorothy." Mom went about her usual prep in the kitchen. I tried again, voice firm. "Mom, Hazel used to know Miriam. She was involved with a scam business. Take a look at what she's doing with the house." Her spoon hovering, but she didn't glance up. "Dorothy, don't cause trouble," she whispered. "Justin's happy. That's all that counts." I was tempted to shake her, make her realize the threat, but her words were impenetrable. She'd always left me to battle on my own. At my apartment, I called Michael, my voice straining. Hazel confirmed it. "Miriam worked with that Bent company in Lincoln. Anything new?" He let out a deep sigh. "I did some digging. Her name's on a mortgage form for your parents' home. Signed last month. Second line attached to a shell company. If she's orchestrating this, they could lose everything." My stomach lurched. The home I'd put my own savings into was now Miriam's pawn. I requested the documents, hands trembling as I hung up. Hours went by and I pored over public documents. The mortgage was not a lie. A 6-figure loan with Miriam's name alongside Dad's. A second document provided evidence of money sent from my parents' savings into the account of her agency. It wasn't an impersonal scam. It was personal. Each dismissed warning stung. They'd preferred Justin and Miriam, and now they were trapped in her trap. I slumped back, gazing up at the ceiling, the burden of years weighing them down. But I wasn't finished. Miriam believed she could manipulate us all. I had seen through her from the beginning. I saved every piece of paper, every email, every bit of proof. This was no longer about the house. It was about revealing her. I would make her unable to hide, no matter how quickly she fled. One night, working late, my phone beeped. Mom's trembling whisper penetrated. "Dorothy, people are here. They want Miriam." I snatched my keys, adrenaline racing, and sped to the house. 2 investigators stood in the driveway, badges reflecting porch light. Dad's face was white, Justin pacing behind him, holding his phone. "It's real estate transactions," one explained, holding papers. "We want Miriam Cole. She's associated with fraud, counterfeit documents, stolen money." Justin's eyes grew wide. "She's lying! Mom, make her lie!" he bellowed, facing Mom, paralyzed in the hallway. They told him Miriam had borrowed money with his name on some questionable ventures, including the mortgage on the house. Mom gripped her sweater, shaking her head quietly. Dad stuttered. "She's not available at the moment." The detectives left a card, saying they'd be back. And then Miriam's car appeared in front of me across the street. She hadn't noticed me yet. I moved across, phone recorder in my pocket. "Miriam?" I called, voice calm in spite of the fury. She stopped, eyes flying about. "What is this about, Dorothy?" she growled. "I know about the mortgage, the savings, everything," I said. "You've been bleeding my family. Tell me the truth." Her expression curled. "Fine," she growled. "I took the money. The house was collateral on a contract your dad signed." Justin was too oblivious to realize. I pushed record more firmly. "You exploited them," I said. She smiled, unrepentant. "They trusted me." "That's their fault." She leapt into her car and sped away, tires squealing. I stood there, her words sinking in. She was gone, leaving my family to suffer the consequences. Inside, Justin fell apart. How could she do this? He grumbled, fingers in his hair. He looked at me, pleading. "Dorothy, you knew something wasn't right. Why didn't you stop her?" I stood there, aghast. "I tried. You all cut me out." Mom turned away, her silence yelling louder than ever. A barricade I couldn't penetrate. Dad collapsed into a chair, palms over his face, the burden of his decisions finally dawning. The investigators' documents still covered the dining table, records of loans and remittances I'd cautioned them against, now a bitter truth. That evening, my phone rang, Dad's shattered voice piercing through. "Dorothy, we're in trouble," he said. "The calling of the loan by the bank. We could lose the house. Could you come back? We need you." I shut my eyes, years of rejection flashing, bills I paid, fixes I'd done, that one dinner where they pushed me out. "No, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "I gave everything for that house, and you picked Justin and Miriam over me. You're on your own now." He begged, words faltering. But I hung up. For the first time, I felt unencumbered, as if I'd shed a burden I'd borne too long. The next morning, I played back the recording, Miriam's cool, crystalline confession of the scam. I stored it, aware that it might strengthen the investigator's case. Justin and my parents were left to endure the consequences. Debts mounting, the house on shaky ground. Their faith in Miriam was broken, but I'd worked on it, warned them, brawled for them, only to be dismissed. I wasn't returning to clean up their disaster. I went to the house to inspect the damage. The front lawn was ominously still, porch lights lingering from the previous evening. On the dining table, papers lay in disarray. Bank notices, loan contracts, a foreclosure alert blaring in letters. I sat with Dad as he handed me a folder from the bank. The numbers hit hard. A second mortgage for $250,000 signed by him and Miriam. No payments made. Their $200,000 savings, meant for retirement, drained into an account tied to her firm. My engineering mind traced the wreckage. The house I'd kept afloat was now a financial abyss, weeks from repossession. Justin slumped on the couch, eyes red. "Dorothy, you've got to help us," he said, his voice breaking. "The bank's coming for everything. We're broke." I stared at him. The brother who'd belittled me at dinner, labeled me as jealous when I raised red flags. "Help you?" I said, my voice cold. "You said I wasn't necessary. Justin, you and Dad pushed me out, told me to take the guest room or hit the road. I left. Now you want my money to get this fixed?" He winced but continued. "We're family. You can't just leave." I shook my head. "You made your choice. I'm finished bailing you out." Dad stood at the window, shoulders slumped. "I screwed up, Dorothy," he said, voice barely above a whisper. I trusted her. I thought she and Justin had it worked out. I was wrong. His confession hurt, but not enough. I'd invested my own savings, hundreds of thousands, into their house, worked extra shifts for their expenses, to be benched for Justin's aspirations and Miriam's manipulation. "You didn't just trust her, Dad," I informed him. "You picked her over me. You picked Justin's aspirations over my actuality. I can't repair that." He gazed at me, eyes supplicant. But I stood steady. I'd done too much already. Mom came out of the kitchen with a face smeared across with tears. "Dorothy, please," she shook. "We're going to lose everything. The house, our savings. It's all lost." She extended her hand towards me, but I jerked back. Her silence during that dinner, her refusal to heed my warnings, hurt as much as Dad's rejection. "You didn't listen, Mom," I said. "I tried to explain to you about Miriam, but you said let it go. Now you're asking me to rescue you." She wept, face buried in her hands, but tears couldn't wash away the years of neglect. Guilt flared, but it wasn't strong enough to change my mind. I was no longer their safety net. I walked through the house, seeing my contributions, the new windows I'd funded, the fridge I'd replaced, the walls I'd painted, all now tied to Miriam's fraud. Bank notices warned of foreclosure within weeks if the loan wasn't addressed. Justin had no job, no plan, just excuses. Dad's pension wouldn't cover the debt, and Mom's part-time shop work barely bought groceries. They were headed for bankruptcy, and for the first time, I knew I couldn't make it right, not because I couldn't afford it, but because I didn't owe them that price. I departed, their need hanging around me like a specter. At my apartment, I gazed at Miriam's recording of her confession, my sole bargaining chip. I had forwarded it to the investigators in hopes it would help their case, but it wouldn't get the money back or the house. My family was shattered, not only by Miriam's infidelity, but by years of being taken for granted. I'd established a new life in Omaha, my place, my decisions. 6 months passed before I sat with Gloria, sunlight filtering through my window as we sipped wine. My desk was covered with blueprints for a new bridge project, which got me promoted to lead engineer. The raise purchased a coffee table and bookshelf I'd long desired. Gloria stood up and raised her glass. "To you, Dorothy," she said, grinning broadly. "You're killing it." I smiled, feeling the lightness I hadn't known. Yoga twice weekly, dinners with Gloria, a career defining my path. I was happy, not because everything was ideal, but because I'd chosen myself. I heard word from a mutual friend. My family lost the house. The bank foreclosed after missed payments, forcing them into a cramped rental in Omaha's suburbs. Justin worked part-time at a hardware store, scraping by after Miriam's betrayal, his confidence gone, replaced by late-night loan begs. Dad drove for a delivery service. Mom cleaned houses. The debts Miriam left loomed large, no savings to cushion the fall. They survived barely, their lives upended by their choices. I hadn't seen them since that visit. Justin texted for cash or a roof. I didn't respond. Dad left me voicemails, gentler now, but I couldn't call them back. Mom wrote a letter of apologies and regrets. It remained unopened on my counter. I'd borne their loads for years, then been cast aside when I needed them. Cutting them off hurt, but it was needed. I'd learned to value self-respect over their expectations, setting boundaries to protect my peace. In hindsight, the lesson was obvious. Family is not blood. It's those who notice you, appreciate you, support you. Gloria was that to me, a friend who showed up with no expectations. My family preferred Miriam's deception to my caution, and I suffered for their blindness. But with the walk away, I discovered my value. Boundary setting wasn't about cutting them off. It was about protecting my heart, my time, my life. What a wild ride. Dorothy's stand against greed from her family left them stunned. Did her decision make you decide, or would you have assisted? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Your tale could inspire our next video. Give that like button if you're cheering for Dorothy, subscribe for more stories of courage, and share with someone who could use some courage. Ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's keep this adventure alive. Family is those who support you and not drain you. Establish boundaries to guard your peace and restore your value.